This is Inspirational Women, a weekly series shining the spotlight on female trailblazers making a true difference in our community. Once again, here is Kate Daniels.
Psychotherapist Christi Taylor-Jones holds a master's degree in marriage and family therapy and is the author of Touched by Suicide, a personal and psychological perspective on the longing for death and rebirth. This relates well to not just this Memorial Day, but to understanding our life, the many various reasons and the stresses that challenge us each and every day. Christi Taylor-Jones, good morning, and I thank you so greatly for being with us this morning.
Well, good morning, and I'm glad to be here.
I am really very excited to have you with us because you, as your work as a psychotherapist, and really this has been so much of your life, all your experiences being an author, and I have in front of me your new book, Touched by Suicide. So much of this is so relevant to our life today. I mean, it's always been relevant, but just the kind of turmoil and chaos and challenges each of us really is impacted by these days. I feel this work, your work, is so highly important.
Thank you. Yes, it is important, but I also would say that suicide is nothing new.
Yes.
And it has been around since the beginning of time. And so certainly there are factors that are going on right now that might, make it more urgent than at other times. Certainly with the economy being one of those factors, is that the economy touches on a lot of things other than just money. It's what we use to have a sense of purpose and a sense of our own worth and our ability to help others, whether it's our family or whoever. And so it's all tied in with a lot of other issues than just money.
Right. Because that's, as you were saying, I think this is a big one. So often our self-worth is all tied into it. But then it gets to be pretty basic too. How do I live? How do I take care of, maybe it's not just me, I have a family, how to really take care of each other and all of them. And hopefully we're self-aware enough that it's not like, what's it going to look like to other people? But I don't want that to be so judgmental. So it really is, though, like, how do I appear? I want to look like a person who knows what they're doing and is living their best life.
Right. And it's not just the outer resources, but the inner resources. So when we talk about suicide, it's never one thing. It's multiple factors at play when somebody actually decides to commit suicide. So you have to look at what the inner resources were to begin with. So even though, I think it's a 20% increase in suicides, during an economic turndown, what we're looking at is who is already on the edge. That there's lots of other things that are going on, either externally or internally. And those are the people who are most at risk because they don't have the inner resources, the physical resources, the financial resources, and sometimes not even the spiritual resources. And this is the last straw.
Yes.
This is what puts them over the edge. And those are the people during an economic turndown, not to mention, there's so much going on, in the country right now, the polarization and the isolation and all of that come into play. And so isolation is one that I think is particularly important because if you feel isolated, and everything in our society right now is leaning toward more and more isolation. Mm-hmm. And that, in bad times, one of the things that keeps us going is our connection with other people, also our connection with ourselves, but with other people. And if you don't have the resources financially, I mean, for some, it's a difference between homelessness and having a home. You're on the street.
Yes.
So all of that is at play when we talk about suicide.
And so there's our own personal experience going on, then to even consider, if we can consider help outside, that's been so limited. And it's also because of the times, it's becoming even more limited to have those resources like yourself as a psychotherapist.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because when they started cutting things like mental health for veterans and other health related benefits for people, I just kind of shuddered, because even in my own practice, people are saying, I don't know if I can afford to come, I will lower the price, or I will have them come every other week. But if you don't have the resources even for that, and this is a time when you most need it, so if you're not already getting help, and you have to go find it, and there's the funds. I supervise at a clinic, a low-fee clinic, and they are having to raise their prices just so that they can stay in business.
Yeah.
But what's also happening is that people can't afford that increase. They can't even afford, they can barely afford to go to a low-fee clinic.
Yeah.
So, people just give up, and at the time that they most need these resources. So I have very strong feelings about the cuts in mental and physical health, because if you aren't physically well, that's another, you're already struggling with some kind of illness or, a physical disability, and you need mental health too, and you can't get either one. And so the more factors there are, suicidal factors, I mean, because statistics talk about, the economy increases it, this increases that, but it's really a culmination of all of those factors. And the more you stack on top of the others, the more likely that somebody will suicide who might not otherwise.
Right. Oh, it is really such a burden that is impacting really each and every single one of us.
Yes.
Because if one person is suffering, that's already a weakness just in our whole life system. So I think it's important for all of us to be aware that this is a concern if we aren't already, but just to know that we can't just be, if we have the wherewithal, not to just be thinking, well, things are okay for me. If they're okay, that's wonderful, but we have to reach out and be aware of what's happening to our fellow neighbor, our fellow worker.
Yes, absolutely, because what impacts other people, we aren't isolated.
Right.
We aren't on an island by ourselves. And so what's impacting the people close to us, but even on the world stage, we think, oh, that's over there, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But there is a ripple effect, and we are all connected. And so, yes, if people in our family are struggling, are depressed, are having a hard time, of course that affects us. How can it not?
Yeah.
And so, the things that I try to tell people during this time are to reduce the things that have negative energy and increase what has positive energy. And one of those things we talked about earlier is the news, is how much news can you take in? And what's going on right now in the country and the world is, in all of my years of working, I've never had clients come in so much with external stuff that's happening, that's making them anxious, making them depressed. They can't sleep. They're having all of these physical ailments, and they're coming in to talk about what's going on in the world. Now, of course, what's going on within them is something that we have to deal with, but that's where they're going, is to what is happening. I can't deal with what's happening. I have all these dark feelings, the doom and gloom. It's, the end of the world, that kind of thing. And I am not used to having so many people so upset about what's happening in the world. It's usually their relationship, their immediate relationship, parents and kids, work. Well, work comes into this too, of course, because their work is being impacted. People at work are stressed out. And so there's, that is where people are going right now, is help me calm down about what's happening out there.
And so at least maybe they're able to come in and speak with you. But as we were saying, these resources are becoming more limited,
Yes.
which is yes, as we've said, is so wrong. It's unconscionable that that's the case. But if they can only come infrequently, for people who don't even have the insurance to be able to reach out, how do we help these people, these persons? What can they do for themselves if they can't reach out to someone else professionally?
Well, professionally, yes. I think the thing is they can still reach out, and they need to reach out. That goes back to the issue of not isolating, because when people are depressed or anxious, they tend to isolate when they need to do just the opposite. So maybe they can't afford a therapist, but do they have a friend? Or can they organize some kind of a group of their own, where they can just talk about all of this stuff without getting too negative? That's always the danger with when you organize your own group and you don't have a professional, is that you can go down the rabbit hole. But I think there is something in being able to just talk to a friend or friends. And I have friends who can't afford therapy, who will call me, and I'm not their therapist, but I'll just let them vent. I say, I'm not, I can't do therapy with you, but, just tell me what you're feeling, what's going on.
Yeah. It's kind of that pressure valve release going on.
Yes. And now more than ever, we need that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what is your feeling about journaling, like a writing therapy?
Well, I think it's great for some people. I think any kind of artistic expression. I often suggest that people paint. Like, I work a lot with dreams, and people are having some pretty dire dreams right now. And I will say, why don't you paint it? Because when they paint it, and I actually like them to do something they're not good at. So if they're a writer, I'd rather they paint. If they, if they're not a writer, write, because that's where the unconscious can come through, because they're not so practiced, in being able to focus on the medium that they're using.
Right.
And so for me, during times of difficulty, I've painted my feelings. And I can tell you that there was a lot of paintings that were very black during black times in my life. that, and I would see things in the painting that I didn't even think I was painting. That's what I mean by the unconscious. And I have a client who does these ink paintings, I don't know exactly what it's called, but and when she does it, and she sends her payment to me with a card with her ink painting, and there's always something in the painting that she didn't see, and I see or she sees, and we go, well, isn't that interesting? What is that about?
Yeah.
And it was the same for me, even though there was a lot of black in these paintings when I was in a dark place. There was always something else that I didn't even realize I was painting that was in it. So, or clay, working because that you're using your hands, and there's something about just the physicality of, you're alive when you're touching and molding, and, there's energy there. And so even something like that can be helpful.
And as you mentioned, how you do work with dreams and find what's going on there, and to be able to paint it or express it in a different way, that really is helping us to become more self-aware, which is that all of that helps us to perhaps feel like we have some kind of control by having understanding.
Yeah, it's self-awareness is important because you have to have a relationship with yourself in times like this. If you have a strong sense of yourself, of who you are, of what your worth is, regardless of how much money you have right now or what else is happening, that's so important that you have this strong sense of who I am, and that my purpose, which I think is really important, especially right now, is that my purpose is bigger than the money I make, the house I have, the car, all of that. That's inconsequential to who I am, why I'm here on the planet, and what my purpose is. It isn't to do as much as to be, and to get in touch with the being of my life, not just the doing.
Exactly. And our society has not, in general, been very much about that. We've been so much about the appearances, yes, making the money and what we can get with it, and forgetting about that inner life, that purpose, the reason that we are here.
Yes. And I think if there's anything that can come out of this difficult time that's so oriented toward money and the money people, and helping the people with money make more money, and so on, is that maybe people will turn inward and say, what is really of value here? Is it making more and more money? Or do I need to develop my own inner resources, my inner sense of my meaning and my purpose?
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is where perhaps it is a newer idea to someone that in reading, so here we have Touched by Suicide, your latest book, so that with stories, with insights, with adding more information, it can awaken something within us that will trigger maybe from the past, just at least crack us open like an eggshell, so that light begins to shine through.
Yes, yes. And, in my book, I talk about two cases of people that I worked with. I also talk about a case of myself and another family member, one who actually committed suicide, the other who attempted several times and was, very suicidal. And what the difference was, those inner resources are what makes the difference between the person. And I don't want to say, and I want to make clear here that there are all kinds of suicide. We're talking today about the stress of life that may send somebody to the brink, but there are lots of other reasons why people commit suicide. And suicide has been around since the beginning of time, and there's been different attitudes about suicide. And in some cultures, if life was, you couldn't make life work, it was okay to, end your life. I mean, Plato talks about that. And then there are heroic suicides. I mean, we know about kamikazes and people who did it for monks who put themselves on fire for a higher cause. So suicide isn't singular in what the person who commits suicide. And one thing I want to point out is that the idea that suicide is a result of mental illness is that it can be, but even those who are mentally ill who commit suicide, there's usually several other factors involved. And there are also, and another Jungian analyst, James Hillman, talked about more conscious suicide, where it's thought out and it's not in isolation. I mean, Freud committed suicide, but he involved everybody in it. And you could call it a assisted suicide. He was ill, and he got everybody around and said what he was thinking and how he could do it. And so there's a whole thing around assisted suicide. And I understand that in the Netherlands, I think it's the Netherlands, that assisted suicide isn't just for physical illness, that you can actually get permission for certain mental illnesses. So a lot of what I'm talking about in my book is people who are, I hate to use this word, but rehabilitatable. They are taking something that's symbolic and making it literal, because underneath suicide, there is a longing for rebirth. And that's really what needs to happen, some kind of inner transformation and change. And, James Hillman said, in all life passages, something must die, and that nature evolves through death. So if we are feeling suicidal, one of the questions is, what is it that needs to die? It may not be me. It may be something in me that needs to die or be transformed, sort of like the butterfly.
Yes.
The butterfly goes through these different stages of transformation. And certainly that is what helped me in, when I felt, suicidal, is that I talk in the book about what it was in me that needed to be transformed, or I needed to let go of, that helps you long term, because a lot of suicide prevention programs can help you short term. Mm-hmm. But and also we all, not all, but most of us at some point in our life think, God, I wish I was dead. I wish I wasn't here. That doesn't mean you're suicidal. Mm-hmm. What that means is, boy, something needs to change here. Yes. What is it?
That is so huge. What a great insight to think that what we are going through, and I think we realize this with all that's it's in such turmoil in our world. Transformation needs to happen. This
Yes.
way is not working. And so
Yes.
not to think that that it's right and I need to get out of here. No, it's to see how can we be the instruments
Yes.
of making it, because
Yes.
everything is here for all of us to live a beautiful, fulfilled life, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right. I think of Christopher Reeves,
Mm.
and I watched I think it was CNN had a thing on his life, and I thought, oh, I don't think I can watch this, but it was so affirming because he also went into some very dark places. I mean, who wouldn't?
Yes.
And yet he found meaning in his life. I mean, he really was a Superman. In that way, internally, he was a Superman.
Yes.
And he lived out his life. And so many people, despite what they're dealing with, they commit to, I want to be the best person, the most evolved person, the most individuated person I can in this life. So I'm going to stay until the end of the last chapter.
Right. Oh, Christi, you are so beautiful. I love the way you express this. I'm so grateful that we have this book, Touched by Suicide, because I feel that you have given us such a great insight and great reason for hopefulness in this life, in all of the turmoil and chaos that's going on. There's just really this opportunity for growth in a good and constructive way.
Right.
Yes.
And my website, ctjonespsychotherapy.com, I talk a lot about these concepts on my webpage and about the book and what, different pieces of information that people can use, even if they don't buy the book, but they can also buy the book. It is on Amazon, and you can buy it from Chiron Publications as well. So there's that. That's free information for anyone who's interested.
Yes, perhaps that's what's needed at this point of time. It's that lifeline that we are able to help ourselves in a time when perhaps we don't have any other means. So what a great gift that is for us and that you are. So we'll just wrap it up because time is against us now. But I've so thoroughly loved this connection with you, Christi, and all the work that you're doing, the hope that you're sharing with us. So all of us, we can learn more about Christi Taylor-Jones and her book, Touched by Suicide, online at ctjonesauthor.com.
Can I just say one last thing?
Yes.
Because apparently there's another book called Touched by Suicide. The subtitle for my book is A Personal and Psychological Perspective on the Longing for Death and Rebirth. That's a lot, but just to distinguish it from the others.
Absolutely. Good point, and an important subtitle to the book.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification, Christi. And again, thank you for this time. You are just doing incredible work. I appreciate we had the time together this morning.
Thank you, and you are too.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this morning to meet these special guests and to hear their important stories, which I hope will inspire us and motivate us to make a difference in our world. Please check this station's website for the podcasts for more information about these guests, and please share the stories with your family and friends. I'm Kate Daniels, and if you'd like to connect with me, simply send me an email, katedaniels@hubbardradio.com. I do hope you have an incredible Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you for listening to Inspirational Women. Tune in every Sunday morning at this time to hear about those truly empowering the Northwest community, all for the greater good. Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women are a public service of Hubbard Radio Seattle.